Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Joe Esposito, and I'm in the UHR Total Rewards team. And my role is Total Rewards compliance and vendor management. And so part of my responsibilities is to keep us in line with the Affordable Care Act. And so I'm going to bring you up to date on one of the newest pieces of the Affordable Care Act. And it's important because we'll be implementing this here in January, and it affects how we handle rehires. So a little bit on the ACA review. If everybody remembers that the Affordable Care Act was a mandate, it started in March of 2010. At that point in time, that's where I got my job security, because ever since then, I have been able to keep my role going because to understand all those moving pieces. But as you go through here, it's been 2010. It was a mandate. Most of the mandates and milestones have been completed. Most of it was done in 2014. Have a couple more things to do. We have the Cadillac tax, which takes effect in 2020. And at that point in time, we'll evaluate the value of our health plans. We know that one of our health plans will probably hit that today in 2025. And we have to evaluate it every year because the fact is the threshold that the ACA has in the legislation is based on gross domestic product inflation and health, so that's roughly 2.3%. And healthcare inflation is at 6%. So there's a big gap between how it trends, and that's why we have to monitor our plans every year. Something that just kicked in for this year is the subsidy notices. So what happens with the subsidy notices is anybody who's getting a subsidy from the federal government for their health care and they are employed anywhere, they send a notice to us to validate whether or not that person should get a subsidy from the government. Okay? So those just started this year. And the implementation of the 1326 rehire rule. That's what we're going to try to get into today. The 13-week is for private businesses. 26-week rule is for higher education. So we have the opportunity here to have a different rule and different expectations and drive us crazy. So there's two definitions under the Affordable Care Act. We have new employees, which is pretty straightforward. And now they have a definition called ongoing employees. And again, the ongoing employees are the people that are employed, leave, and may come back. So the question is, can you rehire me? So the definition is an employee who has been employed for at least one complete standard measurement period and has not had the required separation, which is the 26 weeks regulation that we're going to be talking about today. Okay? So, since nobody's sitting in that chair, one of you can lift up that chair. There's an envelope. It's a golden ticket. It's a Willy Wonka ticket. So, if you could read that question. So does anybody know what our standard measurement period is for the Affordable Care Act? You're a troublemaker. Anybody? You do now. So our standard measurement period is October 3rd through October 2nd every year. Okay? We evaluate everybody's hours, and when we do that, we determine whether or not they're working 30 hours a week or not. And at that point in time, if they do, then we give them an open enrollment period, and we let them enroll in benefits for January 1, and they are eligible for those benefits no matter what happens to their hours for at least 12 months. Okay? There's a number on there. Go ahead and read the number. 22. Okay, so 22, you'll be up next. Somebody has 22 facing them, I believe, in the chair in front of you. So we'll get to that in a minute. Yeah, so somebody else can grab that. All right, so we have two position statements here regarding the state of Virginia. One is the state agency has come out with a rule which states that for those that are in the state program, the state health care benefits, they're saying that you cannot rehire anybody once they leave and come back without 26-week break in service. So we have a different type of a business. We know that we need to bring people back at times. And so we are a self-insured health plan. We're not under the state rules. And we understand we have a different business requirement. And it's important to understand that we need to figure out how to make that work. So we have come up with a different approach to the rehire rule here at UVA. So, UVA's solution. What we want to do is UVA's solution in meeting the rehire provision is anybody who leaves in a salaried full-time position, if you want to bring them back, and you're not going to bring them back in a salaried full-time position, you must bring them back as a wage position. Okay? So the question is why? That sounds crazy. What's happening with their health care? How long do we have to do it for? Those are all the things that we had to figure out when we were trying to come up with a solution for our business. So the reason we have to do that is the wage position offers the basic health plan, and it meets the minimum value and the affordability coverage under the Affordable Care Act. Okay? And that's what we have to offer somebody. We don't have to offer them the same plans as they had when they were a full-time permanent salaried person. But if we're going to bring them back and they haven't been gone more than 26 weeks, we have to offer them coverage. Now, they don't have to accept it. They can waive it. But we have to offer them affordable and minimum value coverage. And the way that we do that is put them in a wage position. We can send out the wage basic health care plan, and it meets all the criteria. Our wage employees, for the most part, predominantly is used by the medical center, and that's one of the reasons why we have the wage plan, because we know we monitor the 1,500-hour rule for wage and temps very closely on the academic side. But the medical center is part of our health plan, and we have to also give them a solution, and that's basically, they use the wage program extensively. Now, the other question is how long? Until the next standard measurement period, which is October 3rd. So what we'll do is we will look at that person's hours, October 3rd through October 2nd the previous year, and determine whether or not they've averaged 30 hours. And that determines whether or not they get to keep benefits for one more year. So just because we hire them back in the wage position doesn't mean that it actually goes away at open enrollment. It's going to be based on those average hours. Okay? So if you hire them back very close to 26 weeks, it's more than likely, unless they're way down in the weeds with hours like 20, 15, they're probably going to be eligible during that open enrollment standard measurement period. So you just need to keep in consideration because that will affect any budget items that you're going to do for the next fiscal year. Okay? Any questions on this piece here? Because that's important. This is the nuts and bolts. Yes? That's a good question, and you're off the hook. Because that was the next question. Why can't we bring somebody back in at a part-time position? All right, that's the question. The reason being is our part-time plan is not affordable. It has minimum value, but for a part-time person, it's not qualified as an affordable plan under the ACA rules. And it doesn't have to be because the ACA says 30 hours or more a week. So part-time doesn't have to qualify, and it doesn't under our current structure. That's the reason why we can't bring them back as part-time. We can't offer them the part-time plans. Okay. Change on the, I'm not sure, I haven't seen the fringe page. Anything less than 30 hours for benefits eligibility is considered part-time. Any other questions regarding this? Because this is really the thing that's going to drive us crazy. So, I have a grid that's actually 4 pages long, and we'll have that posted for everybody as a guide to help you when you're trying to work through the nuts and bolts if you're rehiring. But this kind of covers a lot of it. So what we want to try to do is talk through a little bit of it. So these are the categories, and when you see the 4-page document, the categories will all, mirror each other because it doesn't really change the scenarios really. But early retirement under an ERIP, again, the ERIP, from my understanding as I was working with a couple of people in the different schools, is you need approval from the vice president to get somebody from an ERIP back into a job here. Okay, so we need to take that into consideration. And again, they have to have, for the retirement plan, they have to have at least a 30-day break in service. So that's one of the first things we need to take into consideration. And then we have a normal retirement, must be rehired in a wage or temp position, will be offered the wage basic health plan. Again, the employee can waive or elect, but our responsibility is to offer it to them. Okay? Again, the normal rehire process of ACA 1,500-hour requirement is not applicable upon the rehire. It will be applicable upon the standard measurement period when we do the look back. But when someone says, well, they haven't reached 1,500 hours, we just rehired them. Doesn't matter in this. Okay? It matters that they don't have 26 weeks break in service. Okay? On the retirement piece, one of the things I'm going to say is there are some other caveats regarding some people have health credits under the retirement plan with the state. So anybody that you're hiring from a retirement status, please have that employee contact the benefit counselors at the HR service team because they can go through the different things that happen with their health credits and walk them through any of the things that they might need to consider when making a choice. So I'm going to ask you to please have those retirees go to the HR service team, walk through the scenarios before they make a decision on a health plan. Okay? Rehire from a resignation. Again, not eligible for part-time salaried employment because, again, it's not affordable. Okay? Again, normal rehire process, ACA 1,500 require not applicable. We got to put them in a wage position. And again, we will measure them in the October timeline. Okay? Status changes. So one of the things I want to make sure. So, we have status changes. People move from position to position. They move, in their status ranges. What drives the ACA rule is a termination record. Okay, leaves don't drive it. Status changes don't drive it. Job titles don't drive it. Okay? The only thing that drives this is they have to have a termination record in the payroll system, and that will be the trigger that moves them into the 26-week review if they're rehired. Okay? One of the things that we have to look at is the non-12-month faculty. Under the VRS rule, it says, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the break in service has to be based on when they were scheduled to work in the new semester. So you don't just have a 30-day break in service. You may have until August 25th to look in their review, okay? Because that would be an issue in regards to how we rehire those folks. And again, I have a slide just on that in the document that you'll be able to print and use as a guide. But I just want to make sure you understand there is a little bit here for the non-12-month faculty. Any particular questions on this slide? And again, there'll be 4 slides breaking down the different categories to help you walk through the scenarios that are possible going forward. Okay. So I just want to clarify a couple things. A termination record is what triggers this whole event. It's important that you know that. So to run your business the way you're not normally running it now, moving people around, job titles, promotions, whatever. It's the termination record that does it. All positions have a 12-month look back. Okay, so when we rehire them, we're going to look back, see where they started in October of the previous year to the October 2nd of the current year, measure their hours. One note to make, clinical physicians moving between the academic or medical center and going to UPG or UPG to one of the other two agencies, this rule does not apply because they're a separate entity. They have a separate health plan, so that rule doesn't apply in the rehire process. Something to keep in mind. So how are we going to make this all happen? Other than smoke and mirrors, we actually do have a plan. We have an implementation. So a couple of things. We have a 1,500-hour report today. We're doing that now. We just finalized the 1095Cs, which is what you probably received in late February about your health care coverage. That was one of the things we had to get done this year. The 1094C is what we file with the IRS. We're now in the rehire validation. So what we've done is we've hired Hodges and Mace, and what we're doing is we're going to be moving into outsourcing all these activities into one platform, because that way we'll be able to take the medical center data, the academic side data, put them together. So if somebody's working at the medical center and working at the academic side, we technically have to monitor those hours. Okay? And now we'll be able to do that in a good way. By putting all this into Hodges and Mace, they will automatically be able to calculate and do those 1095Cs for us and the 1094Cs, which will save our IT people tons of time. Okay, because it is a nightmare to try to calculate that every single month to make sure that at the end of the year we capture it all in a good way and not at the last moment. And again, they will be able to do the rehire validation for us. So it'll be a one-stop shop for the HR service team. They'll have a dashboard. They'll be able to review the hours. They had a dashboard this year to review the 1095Cs once we loaded them into the Hodges and Mace system, even though we did all the work. And they'll be able to then work more completely, and we'll be able to free up some resources on the IT side by doing this. All right? So the timeline. We're doing a benefit platform upgrade in Oracle, which should be, we're in the process of completing now. It will be up and running here in 2 weeks. We needed that to happen first before we could, because they have all different file layouts, new elements that we had to build. And so we didn't want to start the process with Hodges and Mace until after we got this built. So we're going to be doing that. We're looking to go live with the vendor around 10:15, 10:30. What I mean by go live is all the data's in there. We're running stuff. We're trying to make sure it works, get the bugs out of it. We'll communicate with everybody in the organization, academic and medical center side, that when the timing's happening, remind people of the rehire information, the rehire rule, and the effective date for us will be to start looking at people that are rehired as of 12/1. Okay? That's what we're looking at right now. So at this point in time, that's kind of our strategy, and we'll continue to communicate with you and let you know where we are with it. So it's because I know there's a lot going on here in the fall, and we'll continue to keep that front of mind as we get closer and closer, and be able to let people know what's happening. Any questions at this point in time that I can answer? Yes. Yeah, so in the beginning, yes, it will be the same type of notification we're doing now. We are exploring, once we have this platform up and running and we're comfortable that it works, we're looking to probably expand the access to other HR professionals within the schools, so that way they can monitor the hours themselves, and we would be more of an audit process at the HR service team, but give you access to the hours so you can see that on a more frequent basis. That's our goal. The ability's there. We just got to make sure everything works in a good way at this point in time before we actually launch something like that. So that'll be like a second launch, and we introduce the dashboard to other HRs from different schools, HR consulting, those kind of things. Any other questions on this? Okay. One of the other things I really do need to talk about when it comes to compliance is backdating terminations. So when we're backdating terminations, it impacts us with COBRA. If a person has benefits with us, we are obligated within 30 days of them losing their benefit coverage to offer them COBRA. I'm sorry, 14 days. Within the time they lose their benefit coverage, we are scheduled to offer them COBRA. So what happens is if we start backdating terms, it impacts our being compliant. And so at this point in time, as we work through this, I need to, first of all, let you know that I need you to be aware of this. Hopefully we can just self-correct. Otherwise, we are going to have to put some other safeguards in place. But we've had quite a few of those in the last 6 months. And that impact, that we're talking about here is we had anywhere from 46 days to 216 days in backdating of some terms. Okay? And so that's important to us. That would have cost us $206,000 if we were audited and they found that out. And that was just 6 months. Okay? So I just want to let you know of the problem. I'm asking you to take a look at how you're terming people, making sure that just because somebody goes on a leave and then all of a sudden they're not coming back from a leave, you don't backdate their term. It's from the end of the leave. We had that happen. Okay? So I just want to make sure you're aware that COBRA is important. We have to offer COBRA within 14 days at the end of their benefit terminations. Yeah, sure.
So the $100 a day, that can be levied. Is HR looking at starting to charge departments for that?
Only, that'll be my second phase if we don't self-correct. Yes. The question was, that $100 a day, are we going to back charge the departments for that? And my thing is this is the awareness piece. I'm asking you to self-correct. If you don't self-correct, that's when I'm going to have to take a look at what other alternatives we have so that way we can stay in compliant and have a process in place to let any auditors know that we are monitoring it in a good way, and then there are things that we're doing to keep it in compliance. But I'm hoping we can self-correct this going forward, and we don't have to do that type of a step. Okay? Any other questions? Okay. So I have one more thing. Somebody has this color on their review form. Did you know? They all go out? Oh, Allison, give it to somebody else. Give it to somebody else. Give it to. Okay, the question is, what triggers the ACA rule? What triggers in payroll does it, the ACA happen? What triggers it? When do we start looking? Termination. Can you pass that back? Okay. All right. Any other questions? At this point in time, I am completed my part of the presentation. And again, if you need to get a hold of me, again, it's Joe Esposito. I'm in Total Rewards, and you can look me up, throw me an email. I drink coffee. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
did want to take a few minutes to go over the workshop feedback from June. I think most of you were able to either tune in live or see the replay when Jennifer Atkins did her wonderful June presentation. Thank you for the Princess Wave. So this is the feedback that we got out of that June FLISA workshop. So you'll see we had 60 respondents. We're very appreciative to Jennifer for the time she took to put this together. We got some good feedback, both, I know everybody wants coffee. Sure. But we'll go ahead and put this out on the HR Community Circle website as well so that you can take a look at it. So people like the handout and the Q&A, and Jennifer, we all know you're very well versed in the subject area. So your feedback is really important to us. If we make sure that you give us your feedback here, we'll put this sheet out on the Community Circle as well. So if you're watching from the comfort of your desk, you'll be able to fill one of these out and you can send it back to me. It is almost 10:30. We're going to take a little break and we'll come back and start the meeting at 11.